Morning all. I say morning. We're on the cusp of the difference between morning and night. And if you live in town like I do, it's now the time where some people are just getting home and fools like me are just getting up. I'm feeling pensive this morning, so I thought I just wanted to tell you why. So less about the jokey things and more about some reality. Had a friend over for dinner, and we watched Spotlight. And I wondered whether any of you had. So it's got me thinking an awful lot about an awful lot of stuff. And I think it's important that we talk about it, seeing as I have your attention for what seems 10 minutes or so every day. I thought it might be a good idea to talk about Spotlight. Now, for those of you that don't know, Spotlight was a film that came out in 2015, starring Mark Ruffalo, who played the Hulk, if you remember, Michael Keaton, who played Batman, odd isn't it? Yep, and a plethora of good actors that got along with it. And Spotlight was about a true story about the amazing work of a group of people at the Boston Globe, a newspaper. And the Boston Globe had a particular method of reportage, which I think we need to have more of. And that particular method was that they would take a particular subject and they would look at it, and they would look at it over a very sustained period of time. And over that period of time, they would draw a picture about what was going on, and then they would be able to really dig into it. And often it was subjects that would mean digging into would expose a lot of people to not so much necessarily expose a criminality, but a need or a possible occurrence of public opprobrium. So they might not necessarily have done anything wrong, but they were perhaps complicit in wrongness. Fascinating idea. You know, it's like sort of an investigative reporting organisation within the paper itself. And going back into the 90s, a new owner, not a new owner, but a new boss took over. And he was particularly interested in one story to do with a guy called Cardinal Pell. And Cardinal Pell was a priest. And that was where it began. Have we looked at Cardinal Pell? Was the question I think he asked. We'd like to look into it more. And Spotlight began their investigation, which went on for a long time. And that investigation eventually led to the uncovering of the scandal of the abuse of children by priests in the church. That was Boston. It didn't stay there. At the end of the film, they show a list of where it went. And if it doesn't leave you choked, then I don't think you're human. It's that big. It takes up more than one screen, and there's 4 columns on each screen. Just about every city that most people could name, including the city in which I now sit, and probably the city in which you now sit. And it got me thinking an awful lot about how that happened. And there's a fantastic character in the film who was a lawyer at the time, who was representing some of the families of these children who had been, representing families and children who had been groomed, fooled, had the wool pulled over their eyes, and subsequently abused by these priests, who the church knew about and then moved. They'd be in the parish for say a year, and then they'd move them, and you could see them move. They plotted their movements from one parish to another around the world, and the idea was that the church knew that they were abusing, but they were covering it up. Now that's a hard pill to swallow for anybody. And there's a great character called Mitch Garabedian. This is the lawyer I was talking about. And Mitch Garabedian is sat with Mark Ruffalo's character saying what I thought was quite a profound statement, which was you need to understand that if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one. And that smacked me in the nose, that did. That smacked me in the nose. So I thought I just wanted to share it with you. And it's then that they really expose what was a kind of what I'm going to call cold complicity by schools, the organisations, the church congregation, by the press, the local press, by lawyers who turned it into a cottage industry, made money out of making money for people who've been abused by priests. It's a shocking indictment of human behaviour. A shocking indictment of human behaviour. And I think I want to talk about that a lot more and do perhaps a series on it or something about it. But what was lying at the heart of it was that in those days, our understanding of safeguarding was practically nil. Practically nil. And safeguarding is not a process, it is a principle. And nobody gets a free pass. Nobody. And I was talking to a friend about it yesterday. And the example that was given was this. I thought a very good example here. If I'm going to work at an institution, perhaps, for people who are vulnerable, or perhaps I'm going to, for whatever reason, a place where there are women who are kept away from, who want men kept away, then it would be fairly reasonable to expect that I would have a pass and a security check, and what over here in the UK would be seen as a criminal record check to ensure that I was safe. And then if I forgot my pass, they shouldn't let me in, even if they know me. Oh, hello, Barry. Oh, I forgot my pass. I'll go back and get it. No, it's okay. Come on in. That would be a breach of safeguarding. Safeguarding is a principle. It is not a process. And it's as a direct result of the types of things that happened in Boston on Spotlight that we have these principles in place. And these principles are not something that you work around. Because the minute you work around them, you create a class of people, no matter who they are, who then are treated differently from everybody else. Because it doesn't matter if you're 18 or you're 80. It doesn't matter if you're male or you're female. Safeguarding covers all of us. That means that no matter who it is that wants to go into a school or wants to go into working with vulnerable people, because remember, safeguarding is about vulnerable people and children. It's not about everyone. You know, this fat old sod doesn't need safeguarding, right? Okay, not yet. I can still breathe properly, I can still walk properly, I can still look after myself. I'm not vulnerable in any defined way, so I don't need safeguarding. But it's apparent to me that many of the people that are involved in this particular scrap that we're all involved in and so invested in getting sorted, that many of the people I speak to, men and women, many, have had situations where they were vulnerable and they understand safeguarding far better than I do. And that's an important thing for us to note. Because when it comes to safeguarding, it's them that we should be listening to. Now, in this, I'm thinking about, for example, children, but people who, when they were children, may well have been abused, or women who may well have been abused by men in the past through violence against women and girls. I'm not saying that they are automatically, by definition, vulnerable. What I'm saying is that safeguarding would be there anyway. The principle's there anyway. Is there anyone? And that when you're doing things like I'm attempting to do, which is try to get the message out there and do so in a way which is, I hope, sometimes amusing, but also real, that starts to come with a responsibility once you've got 1,000 people watching you. That comes with a crushing responsibility. Right? And I'm not going to shy away from it, and I'm not being dramatic, because you need to have that sense of responsibility from the very beginning. Because if it's necessary for you as an individual doing what you're doing to practice safeguarding, which if you're in this space, it is, right? Then that's got to be a practice that you start from the beginning. Because safeguarding is like building a wall. It is the foundations. And if those foundations are rotten, the wall will fall down. Or the wall may well have a hole in it, in which case, who will get through the wall? And we have to recognise this. Because when it comes to the issue of violence against women and girls, and particularly the assault upon women and girls and gay men by gender identity nut jobs, right, okay, and people who have a fetish and a paraphilia that they wish to display and enable in public and make it lawful to do so, that if your safeguarding isn't right, and there's a hole in that wall, they will find a way through it. Because it's what they do. It's what they do. And they will do anything to do it, because that's what predators do. Because in Spotlight, in Spotlight, right, what they do, first of all, is groom everyone around the child. And what we have is a situation here where queer theory and gender identity ideology has allowed society to be groomed. That's what's happened. We've all been groomed, right? We've all been made to think by gaslighting, a very important word, that something's not what it is. There was an old film as well. So I'm going to suggest this, because I've rattled on for 10 minutes now already, and I need to think about this a lot more, but I think it's something we all need to think about a lot more. I'm going to suggest that from your perspective, go and watch Spotlight. Go and watch Spotlight, right? I'm going to do some more thinking about this over the next couple of days, and then I'll come up with another video and try and find some examples that I think are worth sharing. Go and watch Spotlight, but remember that if you, like me, and others are trying to attempt to do something and do it well, and bring us to the point where we can keep gender identity ideology and queer theory out of the public square and get it out of schools and get it out of hospitals and get it out of universities, and make sure that fetishistic and paraphilic men do not get access in any way to vulnerable women and children, then the basis of our doing that is safeguarding. And in safeguarding, nobody gets a free pass. Let me know how you get on with Spotlight. Got coughs this morning. Let me know how you get on with Spotlight, because I'm intrigued to know. All right, I'll see you later.